All right, we are with Christopher Wagner, owner of Pride Roofing and Construction. Thanks for joining me, Chris.
It's my pleasure, Ryan. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the thought, and I'm happy to bring my testimony to focus here.
Awesome. And well, you and I have a pretty unique connection here because you've worked at two different companies that I've trained as a salesperson and
Sure.
started your own business, and you've been able to basically go from a standing halt to 4.3 million out of your house, and now you're getting into brick and mortar and breaking into some other parts of the market like commercial and building just a strong sales organization. And so I want to just compliment you on your success and everything like that. So why don't we talk a little bit about, you've been on board with me for a pretty short time, but you're not new to some of the things that I do teach. So I'd like to
Yeah.
just kind of ask you, what was it that made it a no-brainer for you to jump in with me prior, and what was some of the impact that you have received from some of the teachings and trainings over the last few years that you put into practice right away?
Well, first of all, thank you for the acknowledgement and the compliment. But what's big for me, and all glory goes to God. And I think when I first met you, I think that's why you were teaching a relate and connect. It's a lot of how we qualify, how we relate to homeowners. And you were doing it with me in a bond, friendship, if you will. And it bought my loyalty in a sense that I believed in this person. They were culturally and similarly yoked evenly with me. So I had a lot of inspiration from that to maintain contact. But when I first sat in your training, it was the first time I had any professional sales training. And taking it from the company that I was at to the companies that followed that, I saw success. And time again through application and actually doing it, it's funny, we as contractors, like most industries, we do the same thing over and over and over again. So when you practice bad habits, you might participate and have bad tendencies. But when it comes to even your initial base training, which is what your more in-depth structured version of what you offer to people now, is so much more grandiose now than it was before. But when you practice those good habits, it goes full circle. You see it work, and people tend to like things that they're good at, things that work well for them. Your service is an exchange of information and knowledge for money. That's a service you provide. And it makes me 10, if not 100-fold by actually not just going through the motions, but making sure that we apply it and that we use it and we do it every day in practical application. And I think that's why we at Pride Roofing went from zero, nothing. Actually, our first job was March 15th last year. We built 4.4 million worth of stuff. We still, some of that has trickled over a backlog, about 40 jobs from last year into this year. But nevertheless, just to when we started February 23rd, 19, to the end of the year, 12/31/19, 4.4 million. I sent you over one of our CRMs that back that up. That proves, this isn't just a hoax. This stuff really does work. We applied it from start to finish, what I'd learned with you in previous trainings. And now that we've become partnered with the Sales Transformation Group, the involvement, the camaraderie, the consistent practice throughout the weeks with the calls tends to pay off. There's an introductory kind of course that you take, the basics, with John Townsend, who's yoked as evenly as I think you and I are, and relate with God. It's a good approach. It's clean, it's ethical, and the method works. And what you've designed, when you get up to the higher level with you, and you are who you surround yourself by. And when you're part of the Sales Transformation Group, it's huge because you're surrounded by the contractor that you may be like, but aren't there yet. So it shows you how to get from basically point A to point B, because any sales leader or any salesperson or any business owner wants more sales. What's the point, right? We want to do more work. We want to grow, and especially when they're involved and they're even entertaining the idea of watching our interview here. It has to do with, there's a certain amount of
Okay, I just we had a disconnect, and then you might have heard me whisper the F bomb on this interview, so forgive me for that. And I'm not going to edit it, so we're jumping right back in. So, Kris, back to what you were saying about, I mean, you've just had a pretty awesome acceleration from A to B because you have seen other companies have bad habits and bad tendencies, and when you started your own, you're like, I'm not going to do this wrong. We're going to do this right, and so you get in, you get started, now you go deeper, and it accelerates to point A to point B, basically. And then you go around the community and you become more who you're around. And so, can you talk to that? You were just at an event with me. We do a couple live events for all members a year. We have some more intimate events for higher paying customers at a higher level. But you came to an event down in Florida, and you were one of, let's say, 15 or so companies that were there. Explain that a little bit. Like, what was that like being around other members of the community?
So I have a very unique testimony in how I got my start in the roofing industry. I used to install roofs, and then I got into personal training and working in a gym, and I surrounded myself with a bunch of highly passionate young people. And when I left the gym business, I did it because I was tired of being a top producer in that industry, but my ceiling was so high, my neck didn't have enough room to grow around. So I drove 10 hours to Las Cruces, New Mexico, and I started selling roofs. They sent me to the wolves, no training, not even educate me enough to fill out a contract properly. So I had just moved across the country relatively and struggled. So I saw a ton of contractors do it the wrong way. When you come to the sales transformation group and you're surrounded by highly successful people that run, upwards. I think the top seat revenue wise was $70 million. And they're still working on improving their process. And that's testimony to, if you're a person that says, I'm good enough, or our process is good enough, I had a lot of the stuff that you train in sales transformation group already implemented because of my prior trainings and experiences with you, which you attested to in the beginning of the call. So I had a lot of that groundwork ready for sales transformation group. So it was definitely the sales training for us. And that's why it made the most sense. It's because something as a platform I was already trying to build off of. It's just like, as I said, so much more in depth and structured. From the vendors that Ryan brought in, I don't think I've met a roof consultant of the caliber like Greg Haynes, who Ryan has a great relationship with. He has a relationship with Follow Up Power Edge estimating software. So it's just not all about the sales process. It's about the industry, what softwares could make your company better, what platforms are these other people using, and without giving away proprietary information, you're surrounding yourself by these other contractors who, we're in different markets, and even the couple that we were in the same market, we're still very helpful together. But at the same time, when we did group trainings and Ryan was very, very good with coordinating, so that there was a couple Colorado companies there. We're from Colorado, and he didn't have us together. So yes, we're learning from each other, but he's very good with even the little things like you wouldn't think about, with the coordination of how he breaks people into groups. It's a very thorough process. It's very well thought out. You can tell that Ryan does his homework way before the event to have it put together. It's not put together on the fly. And every single thing that we learned, I brought our assistant with us. She took over 5,000 notes, 5,000 words worth of notes that we get to take back and learn and implement. Ryan's actually going to probably run another one of these either in June or October. And whenever he does, he has Pride Roofing's full participation. If it's regional and local, I would send my whole team to him. If it's a little further away, I think I'd raffle it off like a competition, my top 3 salespeople, because they're going to come back so much more advanced. They're going to come back excited, invigorated. It's like a Tony Robbins experience for your sales team. You just can't wait to get home. You're in sunny Florida and you can't wait to get back to the snow in Colorado, just to get to implement it to your guys, to see their excitement and to see people grow. Ownership and finance, you definitely make more money at the top. which is a blessing, but it's not what excites me the most. I like the inspiration and the bettering people and making people the best versions of themselves is the most rewarding thing that I get. I don't lose sleep at night. Actually, I heard Greg Wallach say this one time. He said, I don't lose sleep at night over my salespeople or me money. I lose sleep over my guys not having enough work. And when you have that responsibility as an owner to provide to not only the people that work for you, but their families, there's a lot of responsibility there. And when you invest in sales training, like the Sales Transformation Group, what that does is it ensures that your company is always going to have its sales funnel. You can't have, everybody does good roofs. And everybody can sell roofs, and especially in our market where there's a lot of insurance restoration. But to sell well, to get people to buy as opposed to sell people all the time, you're getting people to buy from you. And the truth is, Ryan teaches that that people like to buy, they hate to be sold. And through his process, through asking questions and understanding your client's problems, a lot more than just here's a number on the paper, I'm the best bid. Ryan's adamant about not being a bid factory. He's a relationship salesperson. He sells off of building relationships himself, but he also teaches you how to do it to the point where I have a saying, it's consistency outworks hard work. And through his method, you're going to work less hard. You're going to be able to maintain a level of consistency, which for any business owner or sales leader, do you care more about a high peak in sales 3 times a year, or do you want it to consistently keep going up and getting better and better? And that's what the Sales Transformation Group does for us. That's my experience from doing it. And it works. It's a great event. I would spend my money on it over and over and over again because I always have other salespeople that might not have got to go the last time or that I just hired, but I want them to know what we know now going there.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. So yeah, I mean, my events are only for members. So you got to be a member in the program, buy the course, do the evaluations, be a member to be a part of those events. And I'm so glad you're able to come. What would you say would have to, for this to work? You know, you've been around companies that have implemented some of my training and it worked for some, and now you're doing it at the top because, you know, you believe in it. But what are like the 2 or 3 things that have to happen for this to actually work and for someone to see the success? You know, using my program as a guide for that, right? But what would have to happen? The 2 or 3 things that are non-negotiables.
Commitment, application, and consistency. You have to do it. You have to buy into it. You have to consistently apply it so that you're not just classroom training. So I do a lot of trainings every morning. I do from 7 to 8 o'clock with my production team, and from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, all my sales guys. It's optional because a lot of them have adjustments, meetings, appointments, but I do this every single day. And they're willing to come in and learn and be taught. And that's classroom training. So when you buy into your program and the Sales Transformation Group, you're going to get the classroom training. But when you go above and beyond and you go to the seminars and you get on the calls and you participate in the Facebook group, then you're applying it and you're staying enmeshed in it. You are what you surround yourself by. So you become part of the Sales Transformation Group. You have to be all in. You can't have 1 foot in and 1 foot out and expect the process to work. It's a process and you have to commit yourself to it. You have to maintain consistency with it because I find consistency is what people lack the most, and it's the hardest thing to overcome. But if you implement this and you stick to your guns, I tell my people this all the time, especially when talking about money and the money step, but stick to your guns, price with confidence. You have to do that same thing. And your resolution has to be of, I'm going to stick to what I'm buying into. If you stick to the method and you do it that way every time, you're getting away from like the nervous vomit all over them because this is $1 million deal. It's more, I go emotionless. I erase the number off the paper and every deal is the same. I do it the same way every time. And that's what you teach. It's a structure. It's a process. It's something that works. It works well. And then when you buy into it and you see it work, that should be enough inspiration to maintain that last thing, the consistency part, because that's where you're going to get the practice. That's where you're going to see the big thing unfold. This isn't a small picture, it's a big picture. And you have to understand, if you don't maintain your commitment, your application, and your consistency, it's not going to work. It's half-assed, excuse me. But I believe if you do anything, you should overdo it, if not at all.
That's good. Thanks for sharing that. So my program is going to cost somebody anywhere from $8,000 to $20,000, depending how big their company is and the way they get involved. That's a lot of money for a lot of companies who've never. It seems like a lot to invest in a program that they're not sure what to expect, right? So can you share a little bit about
I would love to.
what the ROI is, how fast it pays for itself, all of that? How many times?
Think about it, guys. I did well last year. I'm not embellishing any numbers. 4.4 million isn't a lot for a lot of well-established companies, but to start building March 15th and push that much work out, we were a horse. We didn't have the skeleton for it because we were running it out of a house. A bunch of production manager here and AR manager there. Ryan in Florida helping us like he's in the room with us. But when I purchased the software and the program rather, excuse me. But when we purchased it, we're a smaller company, and Ryan gave you the range. We paid $10K. Very small company. It's a fair structure. It's just based on the size. My partner said, should we do that? He was apprehensive because he was concerned about the ROI. But I had personally experienced my own sales go from here to here using Ryan's lesser version of this platform. He used to train something similar to this that was a lot less than what this is. It's just so much more in depth. I always tell my guys to do stuff, but I like to tell them why to do it. So I'd like to refer to what Ryan used to do is he would tell you to do stuff, but now he's telling you why you're doing it. And as you apply it, as I said, it's just so much more in depth. There's so much structure. And as you apply it, you're like, whoa, this worked for me when it was just this, but now it's this and this. And we've gone, I mean, it's paid itself off 7 to 10 times without the shadow of a doubt. With the increased productivity, it doesn't just teach your guys how to sell stuff. I believe, and anybody that knows anything about sales knows it's emotional, it's intellectual, it's psychological. It's so much more in depth. It gives your guys this armor of confidence that they can go into the bigger rooms, the bigger deals, sit with commercial guys, sit with facility managers, meet and chase people down and feel confident talking about their product, their brand on a golf course. And you do it well, you snap into this process. It's the insanity thing. It's the doing the same thing over and over again. That's the consistency I keep talking about. So we stay consistent with it. And it's just like, you just put it in sport mode, but we put it in sales transformation group mode, follow the process. And we always get the ink on the table. And I mean, that's what they're there for. We're in the business of selling roofs, and the software pays itself off, and you're going to sell more roofs if you're in the business of selling roofs with this platform than without a doubt.
Awesome. So you covered, experience with me before. You've seen the results now. You've given somebody a warning of what they have to do for it to work. You've shown them what kind of ROI you've seen in a short time. Let's talk a little bit about, lastly, what your outlook is on the future of Pride Roofing. Now that you what's the outlook look like? What is your life like as an owner, and then as a husband, as a team leader? What's that like now that you have some of these things in place and you're moving forward in the future? If someone's watching and they're like, I want to, this is what I want. Let's hear, maybe what your life is like now, what your outlook looks like going forward.
Well, I'll tell you, I never, ever check my bank account. Um, Financially, every month it just goes up. My bills go up for sure, but the money, it usually is a surplus, and it's a positive thing to take the financial stress away. But as I said before, it's not yourself that you worry about when you get to this level. It's the people underneath you, and that's why I devote about 4 hours every single morning training and doing quality control, I like to refer to it as, so that people are maintaining the standard. A lot of that standard I attribute to my neurotic tendencies and passion for doing this right and doing this ethically, and being somewhat in an industry that sometimes lacks those morals and qualities. I like to pride ourselves, no pun intended, on being unapologetically ethical. That's part of our reputation. That's part of our brand. The reason I do this, my partner and I have a foundation that we donate 20%, 10 and 10 percent of our profit to annually. We're funding it. It's our own foundation. We want to go into impoverished areas and underdeveloped areas, and we want to help them with structurally sound homes. We own Pride Solar as well as Pride Roofing and Construction. A solar company would like to donate solar and create light and electricity and sustainable resources for them. So we're very motivated by philanthropic endeavors. That's what my partner and I kind of want to do in our golden years when we retire. As far as my wife is concerned, she actually works for the company. She's Colombian, very spicy. I call her our money piranha. She's the director of our accounts receivable. She does such a fantastic job on the phones with insurance companies. And for anybody that is listening or watches this later, insurance is very difficult. You have to have a lot of patience. But any new company, anything thrives on structure, and any new company probably is lacking in thereof it. So I felt like before Ryan, I have my hands on all these different wheels, and I don't have, if I take my hand off the wheel or take my eye off of these wheels in the directions that these, say, vehicles are moving, I'm in fear that they crash and they go head on with a tree. So you have to learn patience. You have to learn to let go. When you implement, if you have your hand gripped tightly on the sales wheels and you're so scared of letting go because you're worried about your sales funnel running out, take 10 grand, take 20 grand, whatever it costs, put it into the sales transformation group, commit yourself to it, apply it, get in the field, practice it, and stay consistent with what you're doing. And I guarantee you, you can let go of that wheel, relax, take a deep breath. Your wife's happier, your employees are happier, your heart's happier, your arteries are cleaned out. And your pipes are flowing, because it can be stressful at times. But when you commit yourself to something that's more than you and more than your company, and you believe in a process that's proven to work for small companies like me who started with nothing and multi-million dollar. There was the guy sitting next to me at the retreat and the training that Ryan had. He was a 20-year veteran of a $70 million roofing company in Texas. So you're surrounding yourselves with a network of people and a plethora of knowledge. I asked him, he did a really unique tile job on a dome that they had to set up scaffolding all around it. They said 4 other contractors couldn't bid it. I thought, this guy said, I don't want any proprietary knowledge. If I need some help with something that I bite off, this might be a good resource for me. So you have other people that you get in the industry, but just being a participant on Ryan's Facebook group, let alone when you go to these seminars and you sit in a room with him and you actually build a relationship. And I think that's all about what Ryan's teaching is, how do I build a relationship? One of the things that I say to my guys all the time, and I said this before Ryan's training, but that really made me buy into him when I heard it, is we don't sell jobs, we manage accounts. It has everything to do with how this training, what this platform does, to train you and teach you to manage accounts. Treat people like they're not on a number in a paper. You're in the business of serving, building envelope, whatever you're working with. If you're a siding contractor, this applies to other things than roofing. You could teach this to guys that pave roads. Anybody that's sitting in front of a customer that sells construction stuff, this is a program that I attest to. It's proven to work, and we're on track to answer Ryan's question, I got to give a lot of credit to my team. I'm really good at finding square pegs and getting them in the square hole. So we had hired this guy to be a sales guy, and he was just tired of what he was doing. He was actually a high-level financial analyst with JP Morgan, the bank above Chase. And he was working for the private bank, which is like equity investing, and he did financial analytics and very deep in the finance market. A couple of his friends were selling roofs and doing phenomenally. He had attempted it, but too analytical of a guy. And I hired him as my CFO. He saved me so much money. He helps me budget and plan and forecast. And he's just a wizard when it comes to numbers. So I'm good at, giving somebody a different seat on the bus and not just say, hey, get off the bus because you don't work in this position. So I moved this guy to our CFO position. He has us on track right now for 11.2 million. And after I brought my partner, who was 6 months in the roofing industry, before we started this company, and I made him, we established the company. He became partner with very little knowledge. So I'm kind of the knowledge and the roofing know-how. I have a lot of experience in the industry. And he's really great with people. He used to run a fitness business, managing over 500 people. So he runs our sales team. He does a phenomenal job. But he's also very, very invested. So after taking him to the sales transformation group, and he hadn't done the trainings with Ryan, and speaking to him in between the trainings, afterwards, obviously we talked about it a lot back in the hotel room at night after the day was done, hearing him, I have no doubt we hit at least 13.2, even though our CFO has us actually very dialed in to hit 11.2 with what we currently have going. And that's very accurate. I think with the additional knowledge that my partner gained as chief salesperson, I'm kind of chief sales strategist, and he's the leader out in the field. He's kind of player and coach. So we call him our front runner or our front car, and everybody's to chase and keep up. I think with what he picked up in the sales training alone takes us from 11.2 to 13.2 without the shadow of a doubt. So I think we might have a little growing pains, but we just refinished an office. I got this awesome backdrop behind my little executive desk here, and our warehouse. So we're not running this out of a house anymore. So I think with the application of that, having all the square pegs in the square holes, the round ones in the round holes, doing the trainings in the morning, and the implementation of Ryan's our sales funnel. Sales Transformation Group doesn't have Pride Roofing's label on it. It has STG, because this is our process, and we have committed to it fully. We practice it every day. We talk about it on a Zoom call. So the trainings go from 8 to 10, as I said, and my production team from 7 to 8. We do a Zoom call at 10 to 10:45 every single day, except Sunday. Obviously, it's the Lord's Day. I actually encourage my people to not even work on that day, believe it or not. So I think with everything cumulatively coming together the way that it has, and partnering myself with really great vendors with like the edge estimating software. We run AccuLinks. It's an awesome platform. It talks to our supplier very seamlessly. We run Hover. We've knocked 25,000 doors. We run Sales Rabbit. We knocked 25,000 doors in the last 6 months, which is super impressive. Our prospecting and canvassing is off the charts. And now that people are seeing our work and seeing our presence in the ground and mortar and awesome full wrap trucks, we've been really, really blessed. But as I said, our sales would be 35 to 40% less than what they are without the implementation of this training. And what they're going to be, everybody that gets to come in gets to learn this, gets to take their sales evaluation, which I love. It's such an amazing breakdown. I talk about a 5-pointed star a lot, and it's like you have these salespeople in here that are really good at selling, but they're awful with their CRM. They're super disorganized. And it allows you to basically pick apart where they are sales-wise and what you need to focus on to make this star more balanced. And that's what I get from STG. a method in which we can train, implement, teach, replicate, and then work on, multiple locations. We're a Northern Colorado company. We'd very much like to put an office in the metro area of Denver and maybe expand further from that. But I know Ryan, sales-wise, is going to do that. And with my experience operationally and with the good finance people and AR people that we have a very short window of collection. We reduced it from 120 to 100 days down to 30 to 40 days, which is approximately a third shorter sales cycles. But a lot of that has to do with setting the ground rules, establishing who's the decision maker, who's paying the bills, who do I communicate with. You get a lot of this through STG. And they teach you when the best way to do it sequentially is, so that you never blow up a deal asking about the money or trying to get to the decision maker. Every time you get an opportunity to swing the bat, STG is going to teach you to hit the ball. And that's a baseball pun from my buddy here.
Awesome. Well, man, I'm really proud of your success, and I love why you're doing it and what you're doing it for and who you're doing it for. And glad to have you on. And, I just love your commitment. You can say what you're going to do, but you're going to back it up because you're putting the work in and you're making the sacrifice and committing, and you're just consistent with it and you're applying it. So I love it, man. Thank you so much, Kris, for sharing your experience. And I'm wrapping up this interview. Thank you, sir.